Hello, Why Jesus here with my first episode of FFS, Freeform Something. Alright, so the topic for today, guys, is the elephant in the room when talking about biology, and that is everything looks like it's designed. Now, my argument for Why Jesus channel is that the reason why life looks designed is because it is designed. If you look at a robot, you think it's designed, not evolved. That's the comparison I'm making. Because a robot looks intelligent, it's obviously looks like it's well designed. It can move, it can talk, albeit a bit slower, less fluid as a human being. Robot was obviously designed. It had a designer, it had a creator. Life being more complicated, moving better, talking better, had a designer, a creator. People are out here acting as if it's ludicrous to believe in a creator when, if you look at life, it shows all the hallmarks of great design. A human being isn't bulletproof, right? But neither is the next humanoid robot. Now, people are going to say, well, advanced things develop from less advanced things, right? That's the argument, right? Okay, and that's one conclusion you can make. I respect that. I don't believe that. And this channel is about showing you, as someone who can think for themselves and not rely on so-called experts in science, is to show you that. Lost track of my thought. So where was I? But yes, it's not ludicrous to conclude, looking at the functional design present in life, to conclude that life itself had a designer. That's just the basis of this video, right? Before we delve into, evolved or designed, right, as an explanation for the complexity of life, and not only the complexity but the functional complexity. So life is complex, allowing life to be fit for specific functions, like catching a ball or writing, for example. All right, so now I want to talk about, no, I still want to stay here, to be fair, I still want to stay here. So a lot of people in this debate, they look at the similarities between different organisms, different life forms, right? For example, monkeys and humans, monkeys and man, and based on that similarity, they conclude that man evolved from monkey because man is more advanced, more complex than monkey, and they are similar. But I'm here to tell you that you see, we all look at the same evidence. Proponents of design and proponents of evolution, we look at the same evidence. So denying evolution is not the same as denying fact. That's what this video is about. Here's why. So, okay, you got similarities in life forms, right? All life has DNA. That's what allows life to reproduce, right? And it's one way we know what life is. One of the characteristics of life is that it reproduces itself. DNA is the main substance that's responsible for that. Life can't reproduce without DNA. All right, and so that's just one similarity. For example, monkeys and humans have. Not only that, but the DNA in monkeys and man is quite similar. No doubt, just a tiny fraction, small number percentage, is enough for some reason to explain the extraordinary difference in performance and output between a monkey and a man. Nobody in their right mind would question that the output, right, the intelligent output of men and women, compares in any way to monkeys. We're studying monkeys. They are not studying us. All right? We are writing books about monkeys. They're not writing books about us. All right? So we can agree on that. Now, you see, similarities between monkeys and man, we're talking about DNA and also, body structure, right? That can be explained like this. Monkeys and man had a common designer. You get it? Like in the same way that you can tell an artwork is by Picasso by having looked at or studied previous and loved previous artwork by Picasso, right? My argument is that the common designer of life, left patterns in life forms so that we could know that they were designed by him. So common designer. So think of like a signature in every artwork or a particular style, and it had, both artworks were created separately, right? One artwork didn't evolve randomly over billions of years into the other artwork. No, it's not like that. But a common designer, right, who has a particular pattern of creating, right, created both life forms, monkeys and man, and by extension, all the other life forms, right? Now, I want you to take note. I'm not saying life forms can't change and branch out, right? But what I am saying is that there were several life forms created in the beginning, and they were created with sort of inbuilt variability, allowing the environment to select from that variability what was conducive for the particular environment that life form was in, right? So that's a lot of people out here have this assumption that people who believe in design, that life was designed, or life forms were designed, that they don't believe, life forms can change. They don't believe in natural selection. No, we're just saying natural selection, in other words, randomness. In other words, the environment and mutations can't explain the complexity that we see today. In fact, it's better explained by a designer creating. So you got, for example, you got Tesla, and you've got all the other electrical vehicle companies that are coming out now, that are popular around the world, all of them had different, all of them had different designs, right? So they didn't evolve into each other, literally, right? Like ideas can evolve, and other people can catch on ideas, right? But all of these different like car companies designed actual vehicles, right? So they had designers, they had manufacturers, they had intelligence designing and molding them and creating them, all right? So it's the same with life forms, all right? Every year, right, intelligence is behind updating of models of cars and all of that, right? And so that's where the example gets a bit more complicated, right? So I'll move on from that. So in summary, the similarities, right, between life forms is not because one evolved from another, it's because these life forms had a common designer. It's like you see 5 digits, for example, all over creation, like 5 digits, fingers being digits here. Same for feet, right? There are a lot of animals that have 5 digits, right? It's like a signature telling us that these were all designed by the same thing, the same person, that perhaps, or the same creator. See, other evolutionists would look at this, right? Or an atheistic, a naturalist, right? Naturalist scientist. Science has been hijacked by atheists, right? It used to be that, that was not always the case, right? But you see, yes, science didn't always dabble in history. It used to be about observing current processes, right? And observing the physical attributes and processes, the physical tendencies of current processes and phenomena, and observing the laws there, allowing us to reproduce them and make use of physical phenomena to suit particular purposes, right? Like medicine, technology, whatever. There's scientific applications, right? Applications of the scientific method. In 1850s, naturalist atheists hijacked science and tried to use science to explain things that happened in the past, right? Automatically, when you look at history, right, and you try to explain what's here now to history, you have to make assumptions. You have to make assumptions that what you see today, or the rates of the processes that you see today, were the same in the past. But that's unprovable. How can you assume, like for example, how can you assume that the rate of carbon isotope decay today was the same always in the past billion years? It's just assumption. That this is just one example of how radiocarbon dating, right? The fallacy of it, because people act as it's incontrovertible dating, but you're assuming that carbon isotopes are decaying at the same rate today as in the past, millions and billions of years. So this is what always happens if you extrapolate. You always have to extrapolate when you're talking about history. So science used to be about the present, right? Observing how things are acting today, the physical attributes of things. Okay, so naturalists hijacked it, and in 1850s, and they wanted to explain current processes. First of all, they assumed the current processes basically maybe never changed, right? See, that's modern day geology. This all started in 1850s. These are assumptions, right? The rate of sedimentation doesn't change. This is uniformitarianism geology. The rates don't change. The rates at which sedimentary rocks form doesn't change. Of course, if there was a huge flood, right? Well then, obviously, rock layers are going to form more quickly, right? But a priori, they assume that there are no such events. It's just so anyway. And the reason why they were doing this was to try to explain history another way, not through the eyes of religion, so-called faiths and all of that. But you see, they're putting their faith anyway. They just don't want. Honestly, they were coming from this place. They were coming from a place where they wanted to explain history without God. So of course, they're going to come up with hypotheses that don't involve it, right? That doesn't mean the hypothesis is better. It just means they're just trying to explain history of scientific processes, or the history of just basically current physical processes, through the lens of, there was everything that we see today and the rates and all of that, that was occurring in the past, right? So that's an assumption. So I'll go back to what I was saying. So proponents of evolution, proponents of design, we all look at the same evidence, right? Same data, but we come to different conclusions because we're willing to accept different things, right? All right. Not only, but I want to go further than that in another video, because I honestly believe the data is better explained by hypotheses that involve a designer. Life looks like it's designed. Even naturalistic scientists, even naturalists will admit that. But instead of accepting, the obvious hypothesis, if it looks like a duck, if it smells like a duck, if it sounds like a duck, it's probably a duck. Instead of taking that hypothesis, because they don't want to believe in a God by definition, because they're naturalists, right? They look for another hypothesis. So they say, okay, similarities in life forms can be specifically similarities in all life forms can be explained by the fact that we all had a common designer. Common ancestor. Life evolved. But what I'm saying is, the reason why there are similarities, one reason why there are similarities, right, in living things is because they all had a common designer. Now, if you don't want to believe in a God, right, if you don't want to believe in a designer, you want to conclude another hypothesis, right? That doesn't make your hypothesis better. And you can't say evolve is a fact, accept the facts. No, that's just your hypothesis that you made based on these facts. Now, the fact that scientists are making these conclusions, are making these hypotheses rather, has nothing to do with the veracity of it, because human beings are human beings. Human beings will do what's not convenient just because they want to do it, not necessarily because they're smart. That's what you have to understand. I'm as smart as any scientist. I can think for myself, and I want you to think for yourself. Blessings, I'm out.